Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our special board meeting for June 12th. January 12th. I'm too hopeful here. Fortunately, we have a brief agenda today, so I shouldn't make too many mistakes. Roll call, we have 3 out of 4 of us present, because there's only 4 seated on the board right now. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So as a special board meeting, we do not have the typical regular open forum, but we do have public comment on each agenda item. There is only one agenda item today. I think you've all been here before, so you understand that we ask that you just be polite. We'll just leave it at that. No vulgarities or any of that other stuff. I don't think we have to worry about anybody we have in attendance today, but we usually go through that whole disclaimer. Since we have less than 10 people, you will have up to 3 minutes to speak. We're going to jump right into things because I know a lot of people have a lot of things to do today, and we've got a few different topics that we want to cover today, all within sort of the subject of how we're going to move forward. We have a unique situation where we have right now 1 vacancy, but in a few short days we'll have 2 vacancies on our board, and that leaves us with the challenge and opportunity of appointing new board members. We have not had an opportunity to meet as a group in an agendized discussion to talk about how we are going to proceed, and there's been reasons for that because there's been a lot of extra work I've asked John to do and some research, which we'll get into in a little bit. But hopefully what today, our result of today's meeting will be to answer 3 sort of distinct different questions that I hope that we're able to figure out. One is, what is the overall process from A to Z, from the applications that we have to the final appointment of 2 people? And as you'll see, there's a few potential obstacles, and John, I've asked him to look up a couple of pathways that we might be able to take, and then we can all weigh in and figure out what we want to do there. So we have that A to Z pathway. Then I'd like to discuss whatever path we take, what the interviews themselves will look like. And then finally, after the interviews are done, regardless of what pathway, what voting method we're going to take. And the reason we're going to do this way is in the past, we've done a couple of appointments since I've been here, and it really got to the end when that discussion happened, and that's not fruitful. So I think it's helpful that everybody will, not only us, but everyone else will understand the process that we're going through and how we're going to get to where we're going to go. So with that, let's take public comment first. So I have 1 card from Kevin. Anybody else want to speak? Let me know. Kevin, come on up. Thanks for being here. Push the button with the person on it.
Great, thanks. Good morning. Thanks for listening to me. It'll be less than 3 minutes. The main thing I want to say is I understand there's 12 applications. I think they're public records. Along the bottom of the document, every application says, note, under California Public Records Act, copies of an application received by the school district must be made available for public inspection and copies provided upon request. And I've been asking for copies for days, and the district has refused to provide them, and I don't understand why. When this same thing happened in Eureka in 2021, Lisa Cataldo emailed me PDFs of the applications on Saturday after they were due on Friday. All I did was send her an email and ask for them. So this district has way more resources than Eureka, and they should be able to do the same thing. People either emailed in their applications, or if they walked one in, I got this little portable scanner I carry around in my pocket. You can make a PDF. It takes about 10 seconds. If you bring them out, I could do it. I asked for just a list of the names of the 9 people I didn't know, and the district refused to provide it. So I don't understand the secrecy. And this whole process seems different than usual, kind of secretive. Maybe the fix is in, you know what you're going to do. Maybe you've got some preferred candidate that you've ushered in. I don't know what the answer is, but it should be open. The way things happened so far, it was practically Christmas Eve when we put out the notice. There were a total like 3 school days where the application period was open. Last time around, there were advertisements in the Press Tribune and other things. I don't think any of that stuff happened this time. Okay. I mean, maybe I missed it over the holiday, but I'm just saying, like, parents have some stuff to do over the holiday. The process so far hasn't been good. Last time around, there was a motion in advance because the board has to make a formal decision about whether to hold a special election or do a provisional appointment. I get that we're going to do a provisional appointment. It seems to make sense if we can find a good person to avoid the cost of an election. But all this seems to be rushed, and I don't understand the reason why. And then the last thing I'll say is, you know, I hope when you're reviewing the applications, I don't know what Ludmilla's reasons for resigning are or whether they've been announced, and I hope it's not a health issue with her or her family or anything like that. But I look for red flags in the applications for people who might not be long-lasting board members, because when people say things like, rather than leave the state, like so many in my surrounding social circle, and talk about Marxism and critical race theory and things like that, maybe that's a political activist and not someone who's going to stay on the board for a long time. So that's all I have to say for now. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, just a couple of comments on the process. So what was different from what happened last time versus this time is we actually followed what is stated in our bylaws, and we went with that process that is contained in board policy that's public and has been voted on and is in effect. So we did do things differently last time, like appointing a subcommittee that could narrow the candidate pool. We did not do that this time. We simply just followed the bylaws that were in effect. And yes, there were notices put in the paper, and we actually exceeded the legal requirements for notices significantly. So there were a number of things we did. We had each principal send out an email to everybody in the contact list and all the students from each school district. We did the postings in paper twice. We posted in multiple libraries throughout the district, as well as the required postings here and stuff like that. So we exceeded the legal requirements for notice. And I think one thing we can say is, for all the things that we heard from people that this would be a terrible time to do it, we got more applications this time than we have in the past. As far as the applications, the board still has not seen the applications either, because they're going through the process of being verified with the Registrar of Voters. There's a process to make sure they're eligible applicants, and we'll get an update on that here shortly. So with that, we're going to get into the meat of the issues. The process. So we have a process in which we have to fill 2 vacancies, one that is a vacancy and one that is an anticipated vacancy, because we have a resignation date in the future. That resignation date is the 24th of January. January. Per the elections code, once we have a resignation letter and a date specific, while the vacancy isn't actually here yet for purposes of appointment processes or for calling an election, it is deemed a vacancy under the election code. That gives us the ability to move forward the process for replacement. It puts us in an interesting position when there are only 3 out of 5 board members available for board meetings, or only 3 out of 5 board members seated, in that every single action the board takes has to be unanimous. Because the way California law is, it's not a majority of those present, it's a majority of the number of governing seats on a board that is required to pass. So every time a school district takes action, it must have 3 votes in order to do so. Now, we have some complications in some of these laws. Don't always contemplate all the different situations, and they don't contemplate what the other laws say. So one of the issues we have is that as a board of 4, with one person having a vacancy pending and applications for that vacancy being accepted, we have a situation in which that board member cannot participate in anything that has to do with the appointment of their replacement. And technically what we're doing today is dealing with that process, even though that person has an affirmative right to vote on all issues in front of the board. They could vote on the process for the vacancy that is in effect, but not the vacancy that their departure is creating. That also creates a situation in working with the appointment, because we have 11 applicants, and what's that?
12? I thought it was 12.
12 applicants, sorry. We have 12 applicants, and because both are at-large seats, even though we're in trustee areas, the seats that are being replaced are at-large seats. So residents can live anywhere in the district, so all 12 applicants are eligible for appointment to both seats. So if we were to interview all 12 applicants for seat number 1, and the anticipated vacancy, Ludmilla participates in that, then we have to start all new before we can appoint seat number 2. We cannot just say, okay, well, this person was first, this person was second, let's appoint here and appoint there. Because two things. One, the first person who is appointed, we also have to pick a swear-in time. So we could do a number of things. That person could be sworn in and participate, or we could make a decision before that person gets sworn in. So I've asked John to look into all of the different potential opportunities. I asked him to talk to other districts, including the county board, to the County Board of Education, to see what they have done at the county level to inquire as to how we might move forward. John has created a matrix here that has 3 options. And let me just say, we're not stuck with these 3 options, but this is the results of the research that I've asked him to do. I'm going to kind of hand the meeting over to him to let him explain where he got the information, how he did it, what he's got in front of us. Then we as a board will have a discussion about that and see if there's any other potential options we would like to explore. And then we'll go on to the other sections of our decision-making. So, John?
All right. So this was just to kind of give you a little bit of a visual, because there's a lot of variables and moving parts and things we can do. So again, any one of these options can be broken apart, configured a lot of different ways with different numbers, but this was just to kind of give a visual and an example. So I did have conversations. I've had conversations with legal. I've had conversations with county superintendent. We had a Placer County superintendent's meeting where we discussed the various appointments that currently exist and different processes, and those who have had different experiences with it. Ours is unique because we have 2, and they're at large, but we're trustee areas. And so we had a lot of different conversations, from selecting how you select to how you do this. I mean, some are like, we could have 20 applications, we never do more than 5. Some are like, we don't do interviews, we just pick. I mean, there's a lot of different ways. So that's why this is just kind of an idea of what we might be able to do given our situation. So option 1 there you see is interview all selected candidates based on what the board decides. If we interview all 12 or whoever is actually eligible, we're still, not all 12 have been verified as registered voters. So we have 1 for sure that might not be a registered voter. So we're working on that, it's pending. So it could be down to 11, but anyways, whatever you select, if it's all or some. Option 1 there is you would interview selected candidates, select Julie Hirota's replacement. From there, the board could take action to narrow down the candidates for Ludmilla's replacement. You could do all 11 again, or you can narrow it down. That's why I just used the number 2 and 4, because that's what was given to me. You can narrow it down. You'd have to take action to do that, to narrow it down. One option there is you could then swear in Julie's replacement right there, re-interview and or discuss the selected 2 to 4 candidates, because the new appointee won't have heard all the other candidates, so they're going to need to have the opportunity to hear the candidates. And then you would select Ludmila's replacement. Again, that gives you, for both appointed, 4 votes versus 3, in case you get a 2-1 situation. So on and so forth. That would all be done in one meeting. Could be a long meeting, but it could be done in one meeting. Recognize that Ludmila's replacement, even if selected on the 23rd, cannot be sworn in until after the 24th. So that swearing in would happen, could happen in my office, it could happen at the next meeting. It's really up to you and the new appointee and how they would like to ceremonialize that swearing in. Option 1A is the same thing, except for instead of starting Ludmila's replacement process, the board would take action on who to bring back, and then we would come back at the next scheduled meeting and do Ludmila's replacement, which would be, I believe, February 13th, or any other meeting time you would choose. You could choose to do a meeting 3 days later if you wanted to. But to come back, kind of reset, let the new person come on, get acclimated, and then do Ludmila's replacement. So that's kind of option 1 and option 1A. Option 2 is fairly similar, except for you're not including the Julie Hirota replacement. So that new appointee wouldn't be involved in the process. So again, you would interview all selected, select Julie's replacement, take action on who you would like to bring back for Ludmila's, select Ludmila's replacement after reviewing and discussing again. Then again, you have the option at the end of that meeting, you could, if it was all done at the 23rd of January meeting, you could swear in at the end of that meeting Julie's replacement and then select a swearing in for Ludmila's replacement, or you can say both of you will come back in 2 days in my office and you'd be sworn in, or you can both come back on the 13th and be sworn in. And so those are kind of some of the options we're dealing with. As you can see, we interview, discuss, select for Julie, and then there's options on how you want to get to Ludmila's. Again, the recommendation, the consensus recommendation is for that second, you really want to pare it down versus bringing everyone back and going through, especially if you've already kind of formalized in your mind who those next handful of candidates would be. Or, again, you could bring them all back. That's the will of the board. So that was just kind of a summarized the options that were presented to me when I asked for recommendations. Again, you guys can pull these apart, mix and match it, do however you want it. But this was just to kind of give you a visual of what it could look like.
All right. Any initial thoughts? We're still soaking it in.
So my initial thought is okay, so we choose Julie's replacement, and to bring on this new person and put them in a position to somehow interview and discuss 2 to 4 people, that's probably not the right position to put them in. So I don't like the idea of including them where they've been told to now evaluate these people. So that just seems awkward. So that's my first gut reaction, which would be, that's option 1, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Now,
can I just stress that one point real
Yes.
quick? So I think what John might not have said, or at least I missed, is once we appoint one board member, we could make that second appointment out. It doesn't have to be.
well, I know.
It doesn't have
was
to be
just-
that meeting. Okay.
Option 2 would be the next time.
Oh, okay,
That's what
sorry.
I'm
I
saying.
thought you were just saying in general. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
So I think putting them in the position to now
sit down and
so
vote, yeah.
all 4 of us are now re-interviewing. Oh, yes. So now all 4 of us technically are re-interviewing, asking maybe some of the same questions again, over again. That just seems odd. I'm not against including them, but
Right.
But even if we bring them back, okay, do we have, okay, in my personality, I'd be like, I need to come up with new questions because, you know, it's which is okay, I can do that. You know, it's just, it seems,
Yeah.
this isn't a unique situation, so,
Yeah. And in the legal view, it is a completely new interview, so we
Right.
can only deal with what we get during that interview if that's the method we choose for selection. So everybody who is voting has to have the same information. That's why it's a new hearing, just like in court, sometimes when you do appeals or rehearings, it's all fresh.
so you're saying if we came back 2 days later, included Julie's replacement, we could only vote on what was discussed?
No,
at
we
second?
start, yeah.
Okay, so meaning same questions,
Now,
if we want that.
the other alternative is you can, the other person, if they state that they have watched the meeting video and they have all the same information we have, then they can use that in their consideration to use that. So,
Okay, so that could be a request.
yeah.
Don't pick someone who doesn't watch. That's one
Well, hang on, this is our discussion. If you want, I might give some time for extra input after we've had some discussion, but, now, another alternative that John didn't especially bring out is we could punt all of them until after Ludmilla's gone, and then we don't have the issue on whether she votes or not. But we have to just be conscious, if we do that, there's only 3 votes.
So the 3 of us have to unanimously
It has to be
agree for-
unanimous, and I'm not saying we're going to disagree, but we haven't always had the exact same perspectives. So we have to just keep that in mind as we go forward. And this is, I would imagine, well, as you've seen in the past, we haven't always agreed as we were getting through the process to appoint. What do you think?
Yeah, I wish, oh, that option just seems so much easier and more effective, but the likelihood of all 3 of us unanimously agreeing is I don't know if that would happen. It could, but it's a little risky to do that. But I wish that it could just be something the 3 of us decide, because it would just be easier than having to recuse Ludmilla and re-interview and so I don't know. The idea of having the new candidate, the Julie Hirota replacement, watch the interviews on a video is an interesting idea. I hadn't really thought of that. That way we're not having to do all of it again, but we narrow it down to the 2 to 4, and have that number 4 seat, the new person, watch them so that they have the same information that we have. I don't know.
Well, if that was done, I think we would still go through a second round of questions, though, meaning they watch and we have new questions or
Because
just
they should
a
have
new
the
discussion.
opportunity to
Because they
ask
would have.
Yes, because they,
Yes,
yes.
yep, but we would all start
At
at
the same
ground zero.
baseline, yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
I
And I
like
mean,
that
and again,
idea.
the will of the group, there's really not a requirement to, you don't actually have to have an interview. You could just go right into discussion. Or you could do follow-up questions, or you can create new questions. I mean, it's pretty much at your discretion at that point on how you want to do it. Doesn't have to be the exact same as the first one.
Yeah, the only thing is, it does not have to be the same, but it has to be fair to all applicants that you're considering. So if there's a list of 5, you have to treat all 5 of them the same. If you have a list of 12, you have to treat all 12 of them the same, you know? So you can't say we're narrowing to 5, but we're going to interview this one person only, you know? So which we would do anyway, but just to make sure it's explicit what we're thinking here. Now, oh shoot, I had a thought and I lost it.
Well, so I'll go back to the idea of the 3 of us coming to a unanimous decision. And if we did the interview process after Ludmilla has stepped down, so now we have the 2 we can
Or if we
appoint
do it while she's here, she doesn't attend.
okay,
Because we
okay.
also have that option.
either way.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I'm really thinking out loud. So
Yeah.
we have to pick 2 people, not just 1. So if if we could come up with a procedure where we think we can come to an agreement of a top 2 candidates, do you think we can do it? Meaning, okay, now this is where, we all, let's say, these are our top 3, ABC, A, B, D, and do you think we could come to an agreement ahead of time that, well, if 2 people are coming from my top 3 or top 4, is that reasonable?
It could be. I mean,
And I'm not saying that's the best, I'm just.
without having looked at it, we could interview them all, and it could be clear there's 2, boom. Or it could be there's 6. Or it could be there's 3 of yours and 3 of mine, and
I know, it's so.
3 of hers that are
right, we don't
completely
know.
different. It's just,
Because I only know one name, and that's the person that, so it's funny how you said that you know 3 already, so I know one name, and that was the person that was.
we'll
yeah,
work on figuring out that eligibility, getting the names out, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's an interesting idea too, because I'm just remembering back to yours. And there were 4 of us,
Yes.
and we were similar, like our top 3, I feel like was
We
all.
were, but I took a position that was pretty firm
Sure,
and
Yeah.
not willing to move
Yeah,
on.
you're
And
stubborn.
I am stubborn, so.
Right.
There's I'm not saying I'm gonna do that again, but, given the same circumstances, I may do the same, And it's not that I'm obstinate, I'm just very strong in my beliefs. So,
Yeah.
not enough to grind an organization to a halt, though, so.
so then it comes down to, do we feel like it's important that we have 4 people voting both times? And maybe that's the question.
Yeah.
Is it critical that we have 4 people voting each time?
Or any of the times. Because literally, we could choose to agendize the appointments on the 24th, and there will just be 3 of us. And we can make that decision, because it's about when we calendar. We are in control of our
I
agenda.
know, but you just said you are super stubborn, so.
Well, yeah, I mean,
But not obstinate.
yeah, but not. So, we could do that.
Yeah.
It could be 4 and 3, it could be 4 and 4, or it can be 3 and 3, as far as voting members. It all depends when we set
I
that
understand.
process. So, I would feel more comfortable if we had 4, just so that we're not in a position where anybody feels like they have to give up on something that they feel strongly about, so they can vote their conscience but not obstruct progress.
So given that, we won't push it out till the 24th. And I like that. I'm comfortable with the idea of 4, or at least 4 for the first time. I don't.
What do you think?
Although it is, again, going back to the idea that Ludmilla cannot give input for the replacement, having her even participate in the first vote, if that vote requires us to give our top 2, she's now, is she communicating a second preference?
That doesn't matter as long as she's not part of the selection,
Okay.
the process of appointing that other person.
Okay, so while communicating a second choice,
As long as that second choice is for the purpose of ranking the individuals for that appointment, and we don't use those rankings
Okay.
for our next
for who
action.
we bring back. for
Yes.
the- Okay,
Because a couple of things, there is a section in the code about a necessity. So if you have a necessity to vote, you have an obligation to vote. You can do that even when there are other issues. But they are separate actions. And we just have to be, if we commit to that, then we have to commit that we're not going to use that prior ranking in our new. We're going to say, okay, well, it doesn't matter. We're going to now look at it with fresh eyes today, and this is what we're going to do.
okay, well, I would like to have, I think having 4 people ask questions instead of 3, I think it's a different, just bringing in different perspectives and ideas to interview. I like the idea of having 4. So,
So,
Yeah, I think so too, because it's just, the three of us agreeing on both of them, I think.
Or even
would
one.
be difficult, or even one, yeah. So I
Like-
think, I think we lean towards the idea of having the four of us, appointing Julie's replacement, narrowing it down to 2 to 4, not including, that would, not including what her rankings were. So we'd have to figure out how to do that. And then
So the
At the
first, so the
subsequent-
first thing is that if Ludmilla participates in the first vote, I would ask her to recuse herself and leave the meeting for everything past that, because everything past that would be related to the others.
Yep.
So she can't even, by the conflict rule, she shouldn't even be, well, she can't be at the dais and she shouldn't even be in the room. So we'd just ask her to thank her for her service, ask her to step out, and then we would go on with what we're doing. And also, I'm not opposed that I'm not as concerned about taking a rush for the second appointee. My biggest concern is if we don't appoint, let's just say we say, okay, we're going to deal with this in February, and then I walk across the street, get hit by a bus, and there's 2 members of the board, and the board is effectively neutralized in taking any action, or one of us gets sick or whatever. We have to make sure that the board can function. So getting one person in is my priority. How we deal with the other one, I mean, it could be anything from saying, okay, we did that, we're going to take new applications, and we're going to do another process, or we're going to just take a breather for 2 weeks, and then we're going to come back and give the new person some time to acclimate, and then we're going to re-agendize. We have all these other options. I think we just have to really agree. I would just like to have clarity today what we're going to do, so that everybody in the public knows what we're going to do, we know what to do, our staff knows what we're doing, and we get rid of this uncertainty that's come up because all this happened, as Kevin pointed out, during the holidays. This is literally our first opportunity to discuss it in a month.
Did you have a question there, or are you just making?
No, I'm just
Okay.
talking.
Okay. The idea of doing a second round of application.
The 3 of you can be on it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I agree with that thought. I know what you were saying, I agree with that thought.
Okay,
I can read your
okay.
mind.
Okay.
Oh,
I
sorry,
think-
I was just reading your mind. So the thought of starting all anew would just be a pain, I think is what you were gonna say, right?
Yes, well, especially because we shared that, well, I guess, yeah. I won't even, I think we honor the people, the 12 or the 11
yeah,
that
I
that
think
have applied.
what feels most comfortable to me is doing the one appointment next week. Is that next week already? Or 2 weeks out? 23rd, yeah, sorry, 23rd. And then having the 2 to 4 come back the next meeting. Like, I think we do them in 2 separate meetings, right?
Probably best.
That would be the 13th of February.
Yeah.
With, we'd have new board member, 4 of us, on the 13th, and do the second appointment 2 weeks later. That gives those 2 to 4 people a little time to, breathe, know that they're still in the running, and gives that new person a little time to watch through the first interview, gives us time to figure out, okay, what questions, or, whatever that process.
Additional questions, really.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I
Seems like
I think that's.
we're gaining consensus there, so that's good. If I'm hearing right, we would proceed with an appointment at our next meeting for Julie Garota's seat. And we still have to determine whether we'll whittle it down or not, but we will have a second appointment scheduled, interviews and appointment on the next board meeting. So we'll separate the two. So we made one decision. that yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Keeping the same 12 as as potential, well, now, let's say 12 are approved,
That'll be 11, yeah.
11, keeping those 11 applicants. Maybe they're whittled down in the first meeting, but,
Yeah,
okay.
it could be or
Yes.
not be,
So
depending.
we'd start with the whole on the first meeting.
Yeah.
The whole and the first.
Well, we haven't had that discussion
Well,
yet.
that's
so
the
we'll-
vote, that's
Yeah,
different.
we'll get to that. So process-wise, so we're coming to consensus that we're going to have 2 meetings. So we're going to do 2 appointment meetings, one being January 23rd and the other one being February 13th. All right, should we take a motion to do that, or are you guys good with consensus decision-making on this?
It's okay.
Consensus? Okay,
Yes.
consensus, okay. All right, the only time we'll have to take action is if we want to give the subcommittee some authority. So, all right, then, so now we have that. Our next decision is whether we want to interview all eligible candidates for the first meeting, and then separately, do we want to interview all remaining eligible candidates at the second meeting, or do we want to do any form of narrowing the field at all? For either, or one or the other, or both?
Well, this is where my question comes through for, and I can't remember the exact words, but I think our application said that we would show some slight preference for people. And I don't
just said
remember the word.
consideration.
Consideration. So some extra consideration to the people that live in the trustee area.
Just said consideration, not extra consideration.
It says extra consideration. With extra consideration given
Yeah.
to a candidate who resides in District 1 and District 3 trustee areas.
Thank you. So
I think, is that from the application or the legal notice?
It's from the application, the front
Okay.
page of the application.
So I think we have a discrepancy, because the legal notice said just consideration. So we have, but anyway,
So even if it's consideration, what does that look like in this case? Because, so when we're doing Julie's seat, are we strongly considering those people in Ludmilla's?
well, as you know, this is where I differ
Yeah.
from, I don't know about you guys, but I differed from the decision-making before. And I'll just say, I'll give you my reasoning, we'll just let it lay there, we can discuss it. We are 10 months away from an election. In 10 months, voters in, what are the district numbers? 1 and 3.
And 5.
And 5, but the 2 that we're looking at, 1 and 3 will be up for an election. If we appoint somebody that lives in one of those 2 trustee areas, we grant them the power of incumbency immediately, and literally, they can be appointed in the morning and open their campaign accounts. They can walk out in the parking lot, file their paperwork, and be candidates. Some of them could already be candidates because they're running, because you can do your 501s and your FBPC filings for this election, and you give them, the power of incumbency is always balanced by your voting record. We give them the power of incumbency and no time to establish a track record or a voting record that voters can evaluate them. And I think that's unfair, an unfair situation. And I expressed that in your
Oh, I know.
appointment. And I think that is of concern. And so we, as 3 people or 4, put a little bit of a thumb on the scale for the next election. If they were trustee area assignments, like the 2 of us hold right now, then we have no choice. You have to do that. But since these are at large, we have an opportunity to make selections that do not impact that election. And I think that is what we should do from a philosophical standpoint. I think that's the fair thing to do, to not give the power of incumbency. That's a position I've held a long time, and I just feel strongly about it.
And I know that's your position, but I recall with Ludmilla's appointment, we said the same thing, consideration or extra consideration for that district. And I realized it was
Yeah.
2 years, and so you're just using the argument that because it was 2 years, she had more votes.
The voters have an opportunity to see them in action, so they get the
Well, and I guess-
counterbalance.
And I feel like 10 months is a long time to see someone in action versus.
No, but the campaign literally is now.
I know, but the voting doesn't happen until November. I think we just philosophically disagree a little bit.
Yeah. This is an area where I feel real strong. And this is why I worry about
This is why
not
we need
having.
4 people.
That's why I
This is
worry
why we
about
need
not
4
having
people.
4 people. So,
Yeah, I'm more neutral on that topic because I think it would almost be easier for me to just not know where they live
Well,
at all. Like that doesn't
And this is where I
factor
feel like
in.
it's our responsibility to pick the best candidate.
Right.
And to eliminate someone just based on where they live.
Yeah,
is-
and let the voters decide what they're going to
Isn't
decide.
prioritizing our
Yeah.
district in the right way.
Right. So yeah, we'll all disagree on that, so.
and the one thing I didn't point out, one of the reasons it's so important for us to have this discussion and figure out what we're gonna do is if we don't take action, an outside party, county superintendent of instruction appoints our board members, and we have no say at all. So,
Well, of course we're going to take action. I don't think that was ever, I don't think that was ever a risk.
well, I mean, it could be,
Meaning,
if we
if it
hopelessly,
was just the 3 of us and.
Right.
if we hopelessly deadlocked, you
Yeah.
know, so. Anyway,
So, but going back to my question of extra consideration or just consideration in general, what does that mean when we have, and forget, I don't know the numbers, so it's, how many applicants in Julie's area?
2.
2, okay. So then there's 3 in Ludmilla's, so, oh, there's just
It's
2.
2 now.
Oh, there's just 2, okay.
It's 2 and 1 and 2 and 3. And then 7 in area 2.
Oh, so we have officially 11 now?
Well.
The one
we have
trying-
I'm
10,
trying to do, oh, okay, I understand.
But
Okay,
that would have been in area 2 as well.
okay. So we have 2 in Julie's, 2 in Ludmilla's. So when we're doing Julie's seat, are we considering Ludmilla's area just as strongly as Julie's? That's what's tricky
I
about.
will say that one of the reasons I conceded to allow the word consideration in the application is it has no legal basis. So it really means nothing other than we'll consider where they live in our appointment. And had I felt it had any legal constraints, I would have fought very strongly against it when that wording came out at the urging of Scott Huber 3 years ago or whenever that was, 2 years ago. So it really means that all we'll do is consider it. We'll consider where you live as part of our decision making.
Okay.
And I consider that and say, in my mind, that consideration says, I'd rather not do that because I feel it creates an unfair advantage. So that's my personal
Okay,
perspective.
so going back to your question, do we interview everybody? I think then we interview everybody. And we equally consider Ludmilla's district area for Julie's is what we're saying.
All these applicants are for both seats. So they're not, we didn't take separate applications, which we could have. So every applicant that there is open for consideration for these appointments because they're at-large seats.
But when we're choosing Julie's, we might hold off on pick, if our first pick is, so let's say my first pick is person I love the most is in Ludmilla's seat, or sorry, district area. I may not suggest that person for that seat because I'm waiting to suggest that person for Ludmilla's seat.
Yeah.
I know, and
Yeah.
then you're saying that's just
Yeah.
my own strategic failing.
would
Is
do
that
the
what you're saying?
opposite.
No, just each person's going to use different criteria.
Okay,
So,
okay.
yeah, that's where we each get to exercise our
Strategic planning.
vote.
Okay, well, and I guess that comes down to then the voting process, right? Of how we'll, okay. Well, I think we interview everybody,
Okay,
Both times.
both,
You're on the first one, right?
just for the first one.
okay, let's make sure we have consensus on that.
Yes, I would
All
like to
eligible
interview
out-
everyone.
All eligible candidates, whether it be the 11 or the 12, if the 12 gets verified.
So on January 23rd, we interview all.
Yes.
Yes. And then what I would, before we go on, what I would like to do as part of agenda management is do time certain interviews so that everyone's not sitting around forever. So that may mean that if someone has to wait, it's just a couple minutes if we're running behind. Or we stop and take a 2-minute, 5-minute break because we're ahead of schedule. So I would work with Kim to make, on the agenda, to make sure that we accommodate that. Is that okay with both of you? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
That's a good idea.
I know, I think in our board meeting, you said, for example, a 15-minute but I think 15 minutes, I mean, can we talk about the time frame? Because I realize we don't really want a really long meeting.
So that's
but-
our
okay.
next is how we're going to do the actual interview, so hold that. Do we want to do that, or do we want to talk about the next appointment? Anything we need?
To me, that's part of the interview process. Well, I thought, okay, just finish
No,
the thought.
so my thought is, okay, we decided all 12 for the first interview. Do we want to stick with all eligible remaining candidates for the second interview? Or do we want to consider narrowing the field? We don't have to decide that now. We could agendize that question at the next meeting, and we could make a decision after we've interviewed all 11 or 12 and picked one, so we have 10 or 11 left. We could put an agenda item. The board could decide at that point whether we want to narrow the field or not for the interviews on the 13th.
I think we can make that decision based on our discussion of how we'll go about voting, because in that voting process, if we're sharing top 3,
Well, they have to be separate, so I don't think we can have that discussion now, but we could, after we make the appointment on the 23rd, we could have another agenda item, says, okay, now with the information we all have in our heads, do we want to narrow the field or not?
Yeah, it basically just be selecting candidates
Yeah.
For
for
the next interview.
next
Yeah.
appointed vacancy.
I think we should
Give ourselves the
plan-
option?
I think we should plan on having the option to.
Okay.
go
You
down the
would, yeah,
field.
you would discuss and then
Yes.
come up with a number or individual names. Yeah.
Yeah, so you and I and.
After the
Yeah,
first vote.
It'll be our last item.
Yes,
for
then we'll
whatever.
talk about who we want to bring back.
Correct.
Okay. And when we do that, we'll do that without Ludmilla here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's already going to be a natural discussion
Right.
of whittling them down. So to bring them all back, I mean, doesn't make any sense.
As long as we don't send that narrowed list ranked, we're fine. So it's just these 5 candidates, these 3 candidates, these 8 candidates. But nothing that we glean in that first one can we taint the next one. Because it has to be a new interview process, so just keep that.
Oh, I would agree, but that
Yeah.
you just said, but we can't even message what the ranking is, so.
No, we can't, we
Well,
cannot
because-
send the list forward with the ranking. We can
Okay,
have our
okay,
ranking for the
okay.
first, they're just separate actions.
So some people will know where we're leaning based on the first vote.
Right.
Sort
But
of.
that'll be 75% of the equation.
Okay.
Okay. I think we have everything what we need for the process, the mechanics of what we're doing when, as far as people in interviews. Now we're going to transition, if everyone's okay, to the actual interviews, but Kim
So
has a
are
question.
you going to then, is the consensus to agendize then?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll work with you, and we may want to just run it by our council to make sure we do it right.
Okay.
But we'll have that. So now we'll go to the actual interviews and how we want to conduct those. So that's where you were just starting with the I think I just threw out
I know
15
you did.
minutes. But we need to consider, if we're going to do this 11 or 12 times, we have to do the math.
I know, I did the math.
It's a lot of
That's
hours.
a lot of hours, I know.
So,
I don't, I want to do the interviews right. I don't want to look at, well, how long is it going to take? Let's make sure we can fit this all in 3 hours, and
Right.
then you get that.
so
Yeah.
I've reached out to some other boards to just ask what's been done in the past. I'll just tell you what some other people have done as far as interviews, and then we can decide if we want to do more. As you know, previously, we all asked the same questions of all candidates. I'm not a fan of that. I think that every candidate should be asked questions based on their resume, their activities, and all that stuff, their application. Some boards have given candidates a certain number of minutes to provide a pitch or a statement to the board, and that's all they have done. And they've used their statements and their application documents. Oh, I want to come back. I got to go back to applicants in a minute here. Their application documents to make a decision. Others have done an opening statement and then questions by the board and then moved on. Others have not done an opening statement and just did questions and gave an opportunity for a closing statement if there's something that they wanted to say that we didn't ask them. So we kind of have those type of things that we should think about how we want to do, because that may affect how much time we want to give them total. So I don't know what thoughts you have there.
Well, I like the idea of giving them 2 minutes to do an opening statement, share anything that wasn't in the application that they felt, or that they couldn't get in the application that they want us to know. I think that's just a good way to start. Gives us a feel of them also.
I'm okay if it's in the beginning or the end, but I think they have to have some opportunity to share what they want versus just what we want.
Yeah, we did the opening statements before. That was,
I don't remember, I remember having to do one. I don't remember the last, did they? Okay.
3 minutes, 5 minutes, it was a little long.
Well, we can hold them to
yeah.
Yeah.
2 to 3 minute, just anything that, and I think it should be at the beginning so that we can, if we can make that part of the discussion if there's something that strikes us.
Yeah, because that may prompt a question.
Right.
Okay.
And make it clear it's something that, if they have anything additional that they want to share, because I know sometime, because, okay, we will have read all of their applications, so to just read us the application,
Yeah. Okay.
not necessary.
So assuming we give them 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes to do that, how much total time should we allot per candidate? If we got, let's just assume the 12th candidate gets qualified. So,
You're going to how long the meeting's going to be. What's the right amount of time to properly assess?
well, no, I'm saying, how much time do we need, given we have 12 candidates, how much time do we need with each to be able to properly assess?
Okay.
10 minutes?
I think 20, 10, oh, you're like, okay. I know, Kim, I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
If you want to make sure you're not fatigued in your discussion,
No, I know.
And that can
And my
happen.
bedtime's like 9.
Having it done
I know.
1,000 interviews, when you do 10 or more, the room gets fatigued, and it becomes a different conversation.
I think 50, like,
It's a struggle. It's for me personally, this is a big decision, and to say that we'll only spend 10 minutes with someone is really tough. But
Well,
I'll
that
go
could be an
15.
argument.
I mean,
That could be an argument for narrowing the field, and going deeper with
Which is
candidates.
one of the reasons was
I know.
recommended to me is why you wouldn't do all 11. If you really wanted to go that deep, you would have to narrow the field down. Otherwise, yeah, you'd be going into a 4-hour, 5-hour meeting.
And it could be, I don't necessarily want to drag this out, but you can do it in 2 steps. You can have a meeting where you interview and narrow, and then another one where you go deeper. But it just, we have to decide what we feel is right.
yeah,
well,
I
I'll go
just,
15. I won't go any lower than 15.
I feel like just from having done yours and then having done Ludmila's, I think once you get a feel for their resume and their 2-minute intro and we each ask a question, I just feel like it narrows fairly easily. That's just been my experience. I mean, like, I was able to write down my top 4 pretty easily.
So you're saying 10?
I just think we schedule them in 15-minute blocks, and we're giving them 10 minutes with a little 5-minute of buffer, like if you're telling them when to show up, right? 15 minutes. And yeah, a 2-minute opening statement, maybe a 1-minute closing statement, and 4 or 3 quick questions, I don't know. I feel like that's enough. But I understand what you're saying. I just,
So one question would be, would you still start at 6:30? Because if this person gets sworn in, you're talking about at 10 o'clock, 10:30 swearing in.
I think we'd start earlier.
Yeah, so those are some of the considerations as well.
And
To think through, and the student board reps wouldn't be able to stay that late. So.
The other option, which we should have discussed in our meeting thing, is we could cancel our regular meeting and agendize a special meeting,
Start in the afternoon.
and then we could start a little bit earlier. And then there's also, student board members don't attend special meetings, when we have student board members, we have an obligation to let them participate a little bit. That would extend things as well. So,
But if we're letting them participate also, now you're cramming a lot in 10 minutes. That,
right, I'm just saying, we don't have to, but it would be weird to have them here and have them, they have a right to give an advisory vote on every action we take. I'm not sure this is one of those areas where that applies, so if we canceled our regular meeting or scheduled a special meeting that started, say, 4:30 or 5 or whatever time we pick, and then the regular meeting is agendized to start immediately following, no earlier than our normal 6 o'clock time, then we could eliminate that.
Then there's your 2 hours.
What's that?
Then there's your 2 hours.
Yeah.
At
You
least,
could go with your.
yeah, I see.
So
It's a long
your
time.
long-
let's finish our discussion on the timing. That will inform our decision on meeting structure. So it's kind of a circular conversation. We keep going back, but it's the way it is. I could deal with what you said, 15-minute window, an opening, a closing, and our questions in between. There are, if you remember, some people finish way earlier than others because some people give 3-word answers and some people give 3 paragraphs, and then there's some people who give 3 pages. So that will, there'll be variable, and we'll ask people to show up, say 5 minutes before their scheduled time. That way, if we're ahead of schedule, we can bump up. Would that work for you? I'm seeing not.
well, I just, that works for me. I feel, I just know you, and I'm like, you're just like, oh, it's 12, we're done. Stop talking, and that will bother me.
I'll try not to be so harsh.
That will,
So if
I,
you started at 4 and you did 15 minutes,
15-minute slots.
15 minutes.
Someone has to turn off.
She
Oh,
did.
there we go. Okay.
So if you started at 4, you did 15-minute slots, that puts you at 7. Start the regular meeting at 7.
Do we have a lot on do we have things that we have to hear at a regular meeting?
There's a couple of things.
Because we could also
But that's the
choose.
other side of it, though,
Is you get to that 7, you haven't started discussions yet. Discussions could
Okay.
take 2 hours.
So are you saying do this on a different day? I mean, I know we did mine like on a Friday
Yeah,
afternoon.
we can do it on a separate
So
day.
is that what part, so are you,
I didn't say that, but I was thinking it. We're doing a good job of reading each other's minds today. Yeah, put your mic back on. We could just do a special meeting for appointment and give it whatever time we want.
and especially if we have other things we need to do, I think we have to.
That have to happen? Okay.
I just feel like we already told them that it's next Tuesday, though.
Yeah, but we can give new
Change that.
information.
Okay.
We have the power. No, we agendize this as an action, so we can take a formal
Okay.
action to change it.
But although I'm okay just starting earlier on the 23rd too, I think.
Let me look at my calendar real quick.
I teach a
pickups.
class from 4 to 5 and come straight here, but if I know in advance, I can get someone to sub for me.
What day did we say, the
Rather
23rd?
not. I can.
I don't have I can be fine.
Yeah, it would just be whatever's on consent.
Yeah, if there's things that are on consent, we can dispense of those easy.
Yeah, there's just that and Teacher of the Year, nominees for Placer County Teacher of the Year.
So we have the textbook and
If there are items that don't have a lot of discussion, we can do kind of like we did with was it the curriculum meeting where we handle everything in 5 minutes and get to the stuff that takes time.
it won't have a lot of discussion.
Okay. Well, let's make a quick decision whether we want to do it at that meeting or a special meeting, because we can work on the agenda management to make it happen. If we'll get rid of
I
everything we
think
don't
it
have
comes
to.
down to, are we okay with 15-minute blocks?
I
You are.
am.
I know you are. I just don't want you cut, can't be mean about the time. I mean,
Well, I
I feel
can't be
like.
mean, but I also, but I have
but
to,
You just can't.
oh, I can. But I would be,
Well, I'm just trying to honor that this to me is very important, and I just don't want to feel like we're giving it a rush
well,
job.
keep in
And
mind,
I know.
it's like public comment. If we let one person go over, it's one thing if they give short answers and they finish their interview.
But what if it's
But-
us? But what if it's us that, I'm not a talker. And I know I seem like a talker right now.
What are you saying?
I'm not. Oh, you're right.
But let's just say we give 9 candidates 15 minutes, and the 10th and 11th candidate get 25 each, and they end up getting appointed. That's not fair. We have to,
No, I'll give you that.
we have to
Well, I know,
have,
and I'm not,
it's a difference to finish your thought or finish your
I will
answer.
just try really hard to.
You're going to
We
be
just
able to
can't.
know.
I won't have a sledgehammer.
I know, I did not experience the 11. We only had 3, so. I know when Eureka did theirs, that Kevin, I think they scheduled in half-hour slots, but they only had 5, I think, 5 or 6, so. And I think we had to wait. They finished early, and then we sat around for the next one to come in, so. All right.
Still all want to do all eligible
Yes, I
candidates,
do.
right?
Yes, I
Okay.
do.
So, 15-minute block? Good?
Yes.
All right.
Ask for like a 2-minute intro.
Yeah, and 1 minute at the end if they want to say anything else to wrap up.
Okay.
We can ask any question based on their so it's not necessarily, we don't have to ask the same question for each
No.
candidate.
No, you could choose to if there's something important that you want to.
But
We
if
get
you're
it-
only giving me one question, it might end up being,
Well, we're going to have 8 to 10 minutes, so we won't
Okay.
have just,
all right,
so. Okay, so we'll do 15-minute blocks, but we'll ask candidates to be here, ready to go
5, 10 minutes.
5 minutes before. All right. Okay. Now,
And what time are you starting then?
we'll come back to that meeting thing here in a second. Okay. So now we've got that. We still good for doing it at our regular meeting? And we'll,
maybe start a little earlier if we can, just to,
I think we need to be a lot earlier.
okay,
4 o'clock.
okay.
so if we move the meeting that much, we do have to make it a special meeting because it's not our time. So we'll have a special meeting that runs through the appointment, and we'll agendize our regular meeting to start at the conclusion of the special meeting.
Okay.
But we'll have a no earlier than. And I'll work with you on that because we'll figure that out based on the timing. What time can each of you commit to being here to start a meeting?
I just potentially have pickup problems, but I can make sure my kids, they can walk home. They say they can't, but.
Okay. As long as I eat lunch, I'm fine.
As long as I can get a sub for my class, which with this much notice should be fine.
Okay? So based on that.
Then I could come at any time is the
Yeah.
rest
So
of that
as-
sentence.
So assuming that you can get your substitute.
Yeah.
Would you guys be comfortable starting at 4? Work for staff, 4 o'clock? Okay, I see no opposition, so we're going to do it at 4, and we'll work to get the noticing right, and we'll work for agenda management for the other meeting. And then for the regular meeting, I would suggest not requiring staff to be here, like all the principals and everything, because if we run long and have 2 hours of discussion and all that, I don't want people being here till late for no reason. So they can come if they want, but I don't think they need to. And only from cabinet even, just essential staff that we think we need for agenda items. I want to make sure that we're not burdening others. All right,
And then
so,
we'll just do a random draw for the order of interviewing.
However you guys want to do it.
yeah, we'll let Kim,
I can pull it out of a hat.
Okay.
we'll let Kim decide.
And then maybe if, assuming that all the candidates can come, not knowing work schedules and maybe you can privately work with people if they need to, if they can't, if the 4 o'clock just can't show up, you'll, okay.
I'll just have the time slots and I'll call each one of them.
We're going to take a 3-minute break, restroom break, because we can't operate with one person out here. So
Okay.
we'll just Gonna call our meeting back to order. Sorry, I should have waited till I swallowed. I think we have everything done now except for sort of our voting method. I did get a public comment card. Do you want to just talk now while we figure out what we're doing next? Meg?
Hi there. Yeah, I wanted just to bring a little point to your attention. Your application did say either consideration or extra consideration, depending on where you were looking. I want to just point out that historically, in Marla and Ludmila's case, both, the extra consideration meant that you were considering people from that district. And so people who were applying were assuming that that is what you were doing. And so it sounds like now we're twisting the words to mean something different, that some of you think that gives you a priority and some of you think that it gives you should be avoided because of that. So it's really confusing because historically something different has been done compared to maybe what you guys are setting the standard as now. And I think that may have affected your field of applicants.
Thank you. I think our applicant pool demonstrates that that's not the case. We have more applicants in non-trustee areas than we do in the 2 trustee areas combined. And I will say, if anyone paid attention historically, I was very emphatic about it. So, you know, I understand your perspective. We just have a different perspective on it. So now we have to talk about voting. So, as you know, we did was convoluted how we got to voting both prior times. So with that, we should talk about how we might want to go. So there's an opportunity that we can, via ranking, narrow the field. We can have discussions and then narrow the field. We can just see if somebody rises to the top and make a motion. What do you guys think? What are your thoughts on how we should proceed to actually get to the point of agreement?
I don't know if you remember the process that we used for Becker's appointment, and you were on the other end of it, so. But whatever it was, and I don't remember exactly how we did it, but I just remember feeling like it was really smooth and really organized and made it fairly easy and clear. Do you remember, though, how we did it?
I do, but it was completely different because it was in a confidential executive session, so we were able to talk about the candidates and our feelings about each of the candidates.
It was so much
So
easier.
everyone was able to say what they were really, there was no holds barred on what people were saying. And so once everyone expressed their viewpoints, and I don't want to get too much into the specifics, but John just rose to the top. There was a clear gap amongst others. I think we had narrowed it down a little bit. There are people that we had said, no, that's just not a good fit, and we're very blunt about that. It's not a
Okay.
good fit because of X, Y, Z.
I see.
I'm not sure that would be conducive to a public meeting. I don't know if I'd want to say, I don't want to pick that person because of X. I mean, I don't know if that would be
Okay.
fair to them.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I still feel like there was some sort of, we had our binders and we were able to rank them some way, but I do remember the discussion as well, so, all
Well,
right.
let me just throw it out.
Yeah,
Let's-
throw
so-
it out.
So let's talk through, let's say we start out by saying, skip the initial discussion, because we'll just start out with, let's say, everyone give the top 2. What happens next? At that point, do we see if there's a pattern?
I didn't like the top 2.
Okay,
And I think in a big field like this, it may not be very conducive. I think maybe ranking up to a certain number and then we compare. But with a field of 12, let's just assume the other person gets qualified with whatever hang-up it is. You pick 2, I pick 2 different, she picks 2 different. and Ludmilla picks one of each of ours, it really doesn't get us very far. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it could in a field this big.
But when you say
But-
ranking, to me, that's almost the same thing.
Well, my thought is a little different. Let's just say we rank, everybody gave a ranking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the top 5 candidates. And so we have 4 rankings of 5, and you add across, you will have a ranking based on that. And it might not be the same, because you could give someone a 2, I give them a 1, and then you would basically look at it, and the lowest number is the highest ranked person, the second lowest,
Not,
you know. So that, I think you can't just do 2.
We did 4 with hers, right? Didn't we write down a top 4?
I think so. I don't think we ranked them, though. I think we just did top 4.
Yes, we just wrote down our 4 names, and then we figured out which ones we had in common, and
so my question to you, when you say ranking, so at that point, is it the lowest number wins right there and we're done? Because that
Oh, we could do it, we could do the ranking to either narrow it, or we could do the ranking to select it. We could do either one. I mean,
but I'm trying to get at what you're suggesting, because when I said top 2 to narrow down the field, you're like, but in your mind, ranking to narrow down the field somehow is okay? I'm really just trying to
well,
understand.
I just don't think you can narrow a field of 12 with a top 2. I just don't think mathematically it works out with 4 different votes on 12 different people. You
Okay.
can't
because
get
we
there.
could
I think
all
5.
have a different top 2,
would a
and
top
then we
3 be-
get nowhere.
I'm just giving an example. So would a top 3 be more reasonable in your mind? I just want to understand, I'm just trying to walk through the process of you saying, I want to rank. So what happens now that we have 5 numbers?
Then if you want to narrow the field to 3, you take the 3 that get the top scores, or in that case, it'd be the lowest scores.
Okay, and then you're saying then you'd have a discussion.
Then you can discuss from there. It's just a matter to narrow the field. Good burritos, by the way.
I was up early,
Yeah, I feel like if there's going to be 4 of us, we all rank and submit our top 4 with in order, like, so let's say it's, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And we all turn those in, and they each then get a score. If your number 1 is my number 4 and my number 1 is your number 3, there's still a point assignment is assigned to that ranking, and we figure out who's on the top.
And you could do that with all 12 if you wanted. That's,
Yeah, I think that would be impossible at some point.
the other thing is, instead of ranking, you could give a category 1, 2, 3. So you could give 2 people a 1 and 1 person a 3, saying those 2 have a higher weight for you. And then you add up the numbers the same. So you just, the 1, 2, 3 is not numerical as much as it is really like, least like. That's more like survey, the way they do surveys, and that would just elevate.
Well, I'm obviously in favor of somehow either submitting top 2, top 3. I'm okay with that. I worry about somehow associating a point value, just because then at that point, the assumption might be, well, by default, that person at the lowest is,
Well, if we did say, if we did a top 3 and all 4 person pick the same person as number 1, that says something. If we do a top 3 and, well, let's say it's top 4 because it makes my math better. You take top 4 and everybody picks a different number 1, that's different. And
Yes.
then it's almost like ranked choice voting. You're not going to use that as your determining final, but at least you know which ones have a little bit more support. And then you can say, okay, well, based on this, it's clear that these two people have the most support, and then there's a drop down to here. So let's now discuss these two and make an appointment. It gives you something to work with versus if we did a top two and all four of us picked the same top two, we don't really, it doesn't give us any indication other than their top two. Where
Well, but-
when you have more, you'll
But
see
if
more
we all
spread.
chose the top two, now we have a discussion of, between those two people, and it could be useful. Okay.
I guess I understand
Yeah, I just don't like the
wanting
points.
to have.
I don't like the points associated with,
Yeah, I guess I guess where my mind is, and I understand both perspectives here, is I'm trying to figure out a way to eliminate, which would be the opposite of what we normally want to do, but I think it's better to eliminate a lot of discussion, because then we're bringing those same people back, and I guess I feel like in a way that then lets them know where they are,
So
but they're two separate processes.
If you
that make
pick a
sense?
top five and you rank them, and everybody picks the same number 5, you can eliminate that person. If everyone picks the same number 4, you can eliminate. If everyone picks the same number 4 and 5, you can eliminate those two people. You could use it as an elimination tool rather than a selection tool. It's just how we decide to do it. And we could even do that from the candidate 12. We could say, okay, out of these 12s, everyone's going to get a score of whatever, you pick a score. And let's, for simplicity, say 1, 2, 3. And then we look, and of that, it's clear how many people, these 6 got 3s, they're out. Now we're going to talk with these. So it's just I see it as more as a way to eliminate people versus rising people to the top.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think that, oops, sorry, my legs just bonk into these. Yeah, I think ranking them in order of our preference is the way to do it. Whether it's by 1, 2, 3, 4, or I like what you said about, these 3 people are all number 1s. We like them all. I like all these 3 equally. I would be thrilled with any of these 3 as our next board member. They all get 1s, and then 2s and 3s.
See, that way, at least, if we take that, I think the likelihood of us getting to a unanimous position from a group of all number 1s is it's a lot easier to give when you've already ranked. So let's say the vote is 2 to 1. But looking at the fact that you also rank this person 1 and this person 1, it's like, okay, well, I don't have as much of a problem giving on that versus if that was my number 5, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. It changes the severity of, or the firmness of a position, I think. And so I think it would help us get quickly if,
okay, so.
it's almost like a yes, no, maybe, 1, 2, 3. Because we don't have to do it all in one step. We can do it in multiple steps.
Okay, now you just threw this yes, no, maybe at me. So,
Well, 1, 2, I was thinking 1, 2, 3.
so meaning we're giving a 1, 2, 3 to every person, or we're just choosing our?
If
Okay.
we, for example, gave a 1, 2, 3 to every person, after their interview, immediately after the interview, you give them a score 1, 2, 3. But then when you see them in comparison, you may go back and change them. And we looked, and there's 4 people that we all picked as number 1. Well, that's naturally our candidate pool. But just as much as if there's 6 people that all got number 3, they're naturally not in our candidate pool. I think it just says, okay, so now we're down to here. We can have a discussion around the maybes if someone feels strongly about it, but I think it just helps us say, okay, we're all here, and we're all definitely not here. So let's get rid of the not heres and talk about the heres.
See, to me, that is just having everyone present their top 3 and save the embarrassment of maybes and nos publicly. That's all. That's,
I don't see it as top 3s. Because you could give 6 people a 1, and she could give 8 people a 1, and I could give 3 people a 1, and it comes out that the 3 people are 1, but they may not have been your number 1 choice, but they were all good choices. So it doesn't limit you to 3, because the odds of us agreeing when we rank 12 people on 1, 2, 3 is we're going to get a higher pool than if we just pick 3 or 4 of us picking top 3. It's more random. There's more likelihood for failure.
So now so you're suggesting we share all of our ones,
So basically, we have a matrix.
which is no longer just,
We have 12 names on a matrix, and next to that, as you do your interviews, either during the interviews or after, you give everyone a 1, a 2, or a 3. 1 is I'd like to see them as a board member. 3 is I don't want to see them necessarily as a board member. 2 is I could live with them as a board member. You know, or you get your own, how you'd like to do it. And we take all those and we simply tally them. And we have 4 3s, they're out. We have 4 2s. But look at this, we've got 6. My math isn't working right now, but we got 6 where we all got number 1s. Okay, let's go forward with these 6, have a discussion about these 6, and make a selection from these 6. I think it's a winnowing process. You guys want to comment? You have to come up to the, you have to come up to the mic if you want to do it, but if anyone wants to give any input to us, feel free. Just turn the mic on.
This is Kevin. I think what Pete's saying makes sense, like whether it's a 1, 2, 3 or an A through F grade. Yeah, put that on your campaign posters. That'll probably help. So the other thing I want to say, since you invited me up, is
I really only wanted an opinion on that, but brief.
well, so it's just this. I think it only takes 1,700 signatures or so to force an election. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're doing this, because I'm sitting through the discussion today saying, hey, I should get a list of people who might be willing to sign a petition. And, you know, I know it's expensive, but I just also think it's really important who's on the school board, and it could be worth it. And it's a small number of signatures. That's just what the law is. So keep it in mind. Thanks.
All right. Yeah, the voters always have the right to tell us we're wrong.
I know, yeah,
Yeah.
they have like 30 days or something.
Yep.
To his point, publicly saying who we don't like, I think we're, by publicly telling everyone yes, no, maybe for every single person, versus I like these top 3. These are my 3 that I prefer.
Well, sometimes voting's uncomfortable,
Well,
but
and-
we have that obligation. But we don't have to say yes, no, maybe. We just say 1, 2, 3. It's just
But you're
giving them a score, 1, 2, 3.
I mean,
It's our-
the
it's our
end result
job.
is the same, which is that with your, I just keep going back to yours, you know, we wrote down our top 4. It's the same.
it is.
It's not.
with-
It's significantly different doing your top 4 versus numbering them 1 through 4. It's
I
significantly.
agree.
but-
No, I agree, but I'm just saying.
With Julie's appointment, we're trying to find who the top handful are to have a discussion. We're not winnowing at that point. That's a different agenda.
No, I'm
item.
actually talking about Julie's appointment right now.
I know.
Yeah,
But-
there's, getting to a selection is a winnowing process when you have so many applicants and so few decision makers.
And I don't see why we can't just say, these are our top 3, and see what happens from there, versus now we're ranking all 12.
Well, I would just say,
That's all.
if we have a choice between a system that can either succeed or fail versus one that will give us an output, we should go with the one that's more certain. Because there's 12, assuming 12 candidates, 4 people, you could have 3 different top 3s from all 3 and we get nowhere. I just don't think it gives you enough data to even go forward, because even if
Well,
you
and
get one.
And I stepped out when they were voting, when I was the only one that
Yeah,
left, so I didn't see, I just heard.
It was chaos. Literally, it was. I mean, there's no doubt that this is a subjective process, but bringing some objectivity and certainty into the process so people can see what you're doing, I think is important. And yes, it may feel bad to interview and have 4 people give you a 3, but you know what? We're not the feelings police. Things are uncomfortable. We have to make, I know I've made a lot of decisions that have made people on this side of the room unhappy, and I've made decisions that people on this side of the room unhappy. We just do it,
Okay, well, I guess as long as we're not held to how many 1s and how many 2s and how many 3s.
I don't think so.
But, yeah. Or maybe we should be.
I don't think we
Okay,
should
well,
be.
this is gonna be messy no matter what, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like if we submit, I mean, I guess I just am looking at it from my experience with yours, which is that when we all submitted our top 4, I think what was messy is just that we didn't talk about it first. But once we figured out, okay, we're all gonna submit our top 4, it was very easy after that. Once we knew, okay, we put our papers together, these 3 or whatever got written on the board, I mean,
So for your process, this discussion never happened, and
until that.
it didn't even happen
Yeah.
during the vote.
Yeah.
It just happened during casting of votes. So everybody had their own dysfunction going on, and everyone was irritated about it, because I would rather have a system that I disagree with, but we all follow, than to not have a system, and because.
And that's why I suggested we have this conversation, so
Yeah.
yes. But when you all put up the 4 names, how many names did you then winnow down?
Well, there was an overlap. I think we had to do it 2 or 3 times, didn't we? Because we weren't putting up the same names.
But there were 2 or 3 names that all of us wrote down.
Not the first time.
True, because you were the outlier.
Yes.
Yeah. He was that problem.
I will tell you, as an outliner,
I know, and you didn't want me, and that was,
it's frustrating, because we didn't have a process, and it's one thing
Yeah.
to say, okay, well, we have a process, and, my number just didn't come up, versus not really knowing. And I'll be honest, while I was the only one who articulated the reasons for my vote, nobody knows why everyone else voted in other ways, and I think we have an obligation for people to just know what we're doing, good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, in the end, you know why I didn't vote for you.
I know.
And then we could sit down
We're
and
so
talk
friendly.
about it, and it was a rational thing. We may disagree on the ideology that got us there, but that's, it is what it is. I just think it gives people clarity. And part of our job is being transparent, so people know what the heck we're thinking. And I don't mind telling people, I just don't think you're a good candidate for X, Y, Z,
Yeah. The voters want to know why you're choosing.
So, and this is why having only 3 is a problem.
Have we proven our point that the 3 of us need a 4th
And
one?
keep in mind that a process such as this, where we do the 1, 2, 3s, or if you don't want it to be so personal, you give them an ABC. But whatever you do, once Ludmilla steps off, it gives us information to decide if we want to narrow or not for the next meeting.
So when we do this 1, 2, 3, your intent is to still add up.
So, for example, if you had,
Okay, let's walk through a pretend one.
so we have Bob. I'm trying to pick very generic names. Jill,
Well, just do A, B, C, D.
Sue. Oh yeah, I guess I could have done that. Let's put John in the mix. And Kim.
I better get a 1.
All right, so we can't agree on Kim, but let's say we know that happened in the past. And you add up, this is 3, this is 4, this is 7, this is 3, this is 6. Now you have
It's like golf.
1 and 2, and you'd pick this one, and you'd have your third person, and you eliminate the people that have the highest scores, and now you've winnowed that in a fairly objective way. We would just be doing that 12 times down and 4 times across. We literally could have just a spreadsheet built ahead as we read off our things. Kim puts them in the spreadsheet. We look at the number, we take, and we see. I think it's just, it's simple, but it's informational. Christina, you have something to say? Jump up. All right, we're doing public comment a little different this time because I don't want to limit.
We need help. We need help.
Just generally, numbers, totally my jam. What happens with the tiebreaker?
No, so you missed the beginning part of this
Okay.
discussion that we had before you came in.
Gotcha.
This would basically just be a way of saying, okay, these don't have enough support to go forward, so now we're going to take these 3 candidates and we're going to have a discussion and make a selection from amongst it. So it picks our candidate pool.
But if there is, say, John and Kim are, well, say John, Jill, and Kim are all 3s, like, you're getting an imbalance here. So how do you, because you're not taking an average, right? I guess it's just like, how do you walk that back if you are in this anomaly situation?
So what I would,
think we're hashing
what I
it
would
out.
suggest is here,
Okay, so now we have our top 3, or we have the lowest 3-point receivers.
3, 5, whatever.
Yeah, we'll have to decide what that looks like. So now with those, let's just say it's 3. So at that point, do we have discussion? And then do we vote?
Then we'd probably just
Then
take
we
a vote.
rank again, or we just vote? Or
I would
how do we
imagine it
decide?
might come out, we could do another ranking if you wanted to, or we could do a, like typical motion second, take a vote, it doesn't work, okay? We all voted, nobody wants this one, we all voted, no one wants this one, okay, we're gonna vote on this one. We could do it either way, but I think we could do the same process again, okay, now that we've got this, let's rank them in order of your preference, or who's your top 2 out of these 5, and we kind of, we all picked the same one. But
Yeah.
we narrow the field.
So I think, okay, so let's do this, and then based on results, we might have top 3, top 5. I think we should probably have to do one more ranking with
Probably.
that, and then at that point, we hash out whether we just start
So,
nominating and.
so what we could do is we could say we're gonna use this until we get a candidate pool of 3 to 4 to make a selection from.
Okay.
Would
I
that
mean,
work?
and what if hypothetically, on our first batch, only one person, I mean, what if there's just
Only
an
1%,
obvious front runner?
Well, then we can
Then
say, you
we're
know what, I
just
wanna make a
done.
motion to appoint.
Right. I mean, I think it could be really quick, or
Oh.
we could need to
Okay.
do it 4 times.
Right. But at least there's a process that we can explain, and the law requires when we take these votes that there's no secret ballots. So we just do a spreadsheet, and then we do it again, and those become part of the record.
Okay. It's be fun.
So you would do the ranking 1, 2, 3 for all 12 or 11 candidates.
Not ranking, we just assign them a score, 1, 2, 3.
Score
So it's not
1, 2,
really
3.
50, yeah.
And then you come up with your top list. And then possibly another round until you come to your top 3 candidates,
3 to 4, yeah, when we feel like we got a
3
consensus
to 4. And then you do your motion and second.
Yeah.
Maybe discussion in there too.
Yeah, and we'll have
Yeah.
discussion along the
Yeah.
way. Now, keep in mind, as a board, we can say, we can change our mind at any time, but I would like to have a structure that we stick to so that we can go forward. Do we feel like we're there for this?
Give it a whirl.
Okay. Hopefully it's less chaotic. It would be great if we come up and there's 3 people that got ones from everybody and nobody else got a 1. We're saying, okay, now we're just gonna discuss these 3 candidates and make an appointment. Now, the only thing, because I stink at keeping names and faces, I know with 12 people, by the time we get to a second or third round, I may not remember the face that goes with the name. Is there a way we can get a picture of each person just to put on a chart so we know who we're talking about? I mean,
Or take good notes.
yeah. Yeah. We're gonna figure that out here. So, okay, so are we all good? Does this sound good?
We have a plan that we're gonna try to
We have a
stick
plan
to.
that we're gonna try and hopefully it works.
Are we gonna vote on this, or?
No, I think we can do it consensus. The only thing we have to really vote on is if we gave someone else the authority to narrow the field, which I don't think we're gonna do.
Yeah, do we need to talk about how we'll narrow the field down for Ludmilla's now? And maybe it's based on,
We may.
well, we can't include her, so.
Right. Well, we,
What if we were just to eliminate her?
Her votes.
Votes, her spreadsheet, and look at what, well, no, because we'd have our three, but then we still need that new person.
Including your.
no, we don't need the new person to narrow the field. That's gonna be,
Okay.
we can do that.
Action, that's an agenda item.
Yeah, it's an agenda item, so we'll do it. We could decide at that point whether we have enough clarity to say we're narrowing the field to this, or we want to run that exercise again.
So, okay, so based on, and doing the ranking, I guess,
Yeah.
again, or just,
We could be prepared to do it multiple times
Okay.
if we have to.
okay. Certain number we think we need to stick with, or we'll just organically decide?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it may be readily apparent there's 5 great people.
Okay, well, I
It-
think,
it may
and I think
not
there
be.
should be some flexibility
Yeah.
if I really feel strongly about a candidate, and you're like, but.
Yeah,
okay, this is just
ultimately-
interview process, so
Ultimately, the narrowing is going to be a vote, so we'll
okay,
do like we're doing here. We'll hash it out.
okay.
Sound good?
I can't wait.
Do we have, do we have any open questions?
Can I, are you talking in public?
I wasn't, but I could be. Come up, put the mic on if you're going to talk.
Really quickly, just a clarification. The matrix that you guys built, is that going to be something that the public can see?
Yeah, all voting that we do is public, so yes. So what I'm envisioning is Kim will have a spreadsheet and I will hand her or read off my votes, but the spreadsheet itself, the final, that's gonna say, here's the 12 names and here's the 4 board members, you're gonna know who I picked as number 1s, who I picked as number 2s, who I picked as number 3s. Yeah, we're prohibited by law from having secret balloting, and this would be considered a ballot. So, yeah. All right. Okay,
Move to adjourn.
I think we're ready to adjourn. We have a move.
Second.
Let's go. Thanks, everybody.